Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 58 of the Technology for Good show. I can't believe you've gotten this far. Today is Friday, May 22nd, 2015. And with me, I have my co-host, Chris. Chris, over to you.
Hi, Chris Kernahan, SAP mentor, cloud architect, currently between positions, as we were talking about. My SAP position is finished, and my new super secret squirrel position starts on Tuesday. So we'll hear all about it next Friday. But thanks for having me again, Tom. Pleasure to be here.
No, I shouldn't. I never do this. I should say who I am, I guess.
Yeah.
I take it for granted. That's very arrogant.
Well, they're here. They're not here for me.
Don't know about that. So I'm Tom Raftery. I'm an analyst. I work with a company called Red Monk. I head up the energy and sustainability practice within Red Monk, which we call Green Monk. And on this show, we talk about the technology that works to make stuff better for people. It's kind of a broad swathe. I tell people that I'm not kind of in any particular vertical. I'm more horizontal. I can go extremely shallow on lots of topics. So typically with the show, for people who are unfamiliar, we start off with one or two climate-related stories. Generally, they're always a bit of a downer. And then we head into the better news stories to kind of, bring up the tone and put a smile on people's faces and say, what technology is doing to help us out. So the first of these stories, one of the downer ones, is climate related. Mm-hmm. And it talks about how the Antarctic is facing dramatic ice loss. And this is based on data coming from satellite data. It's published in the Science magazine. You can see it here, highlighting here. Published in the Science magazine. It includes 10 years of observations from space and a broad swathe of coastline, roughly 750 kilometers length on the southwestern sector of the peninsula in the Antarctic. The ice streams were apparently stable until 2009, but they've been losing in the order of 56 billion tons a year to the ocean. Now, that's hard to comprehend, 56 billion tons. I mean, that number is just enormous. But further down in the article, they say the total ice loss per year is about 60 cubic kilometers. And again, that's kind of very hard to visualize, except they put it in a bit of context here when they say 4 cubic kilometers is roughly equivalent to the domestic water supply of the UK every year. So 15 times that is the amount of ice that is being lost per year from the Antarctic. And obviously this is a result, they say, and I mean, this is the satellite, the Cryosat satellite. It's a European satellite that's doing this, that's discovering this. The loss is due, they speculate, to the warming of the water underneath the Antarctic, and it's thinning, it's thinning the ice. And as the ice falls away into the water, then the big glaciers have a chance to move forward, and that's how you get the ice loss. It's contributing, the Antarctic ice loss is contributing roughly 0.5 millimeter per annum to sea level rise globally. So anyway, we'll move on to the next story, because that's a bit of a downer, and there's not much more to be said about that except oops, really.
Yeah.
So the next story is, again, not really a good news story, I gotta say. It's how we are subsidizing fossil fuel companies to the tune of $10 million a year, according to the IMF. The IMF is the International Monetary Fund.
Yeah.
Now, the IMF are, they're not a partisan organization per se. They're not either pro-fossil fuel or anti-fossil fuel. They don't have an axe to grind. They don't have they don't what's the expression, Chris? They don't have a dog in this fight.
Agenda. They don't have a particular agenda. They are they're a financial organization.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. They don't have a dog in this fight.
Yeah.
And basically, they're saying that 5.3 trillion US dollars is roughly the estimate for 2015, and it's greater than the total health spending of all the world's governments. And they break it out into $14.5 billion per day, $600 million per hour, 10 per minute, $158,000 per second. The numbers are just absolutely insane. And it might make sense if the fossil fuel industry were doing something good. If it was spending on health, then that would actually be a good thing.
It's
but
not even
we're paying these people $10 million an hour to destroy the planet.
Per minute.
Per minute. Right? $600 million an hour.
When I first saw this, I couldn't actually believe that we were actually subsidizing this, even to start with. I could understand people subsidizing. We in the European Union, we had the butter lake and the milk lake and the wine lake and all the rest of it, subsidizing people not to overproduce.
Yeah.
But ultimately, this is absolutely boggling, because it's not as if oil and gas and petrochemicals are not profitable.
There's someone moving around there behind you, Chris.
Oh yeah. Well, you have Freddie. I have a small bear. I have a small bear. So yeah, so it's not as if it's not a profitable industry. I know over the last number of years we've seen the feedback loop on the oil and the petrochemical industry becoming shorter. The dip in oil has consequently led to tightening of belts in many petrochemical companies very, very quickly, quicker than I think we've seen in the past. But 10 million per minute just staggers me.
It's insane. It's insane. And like I say, we're paying them to destroy the planet. I mean, it's not all direct subsidies to them. A lot of it is the fact that they're not being billed for a lot of the damage they're doing. But they
also write envelopes going to people.
There's that. There's also the fact that they get subsidized and tax breaks for drilling exercises and things like that. By the way, we should say hello to Karen Tillotson, who has said hi on Twitter.
Hello.
She's watching. Hey, Karen.
Hello.
But yeah, they're getting subsidized for going out and exploring and drilling, and I mean, we have to leave it in the ground. We have to leave it in, and we're paying them to go look for more when we already have, 4 times what we can extract.
Yeah.
Okay, look, we'll move on, because I just get a headache. I will. I'll lose it.
Okay, breathe, Tom. It's okay.
Oh yeah. We'll have to get into some good news stories faster.
Absolutely.
I will start losing it, and we do have some great good news stories. So the first one I saw was this one about how these giant wind turbines could dramatically change energy production in the US. Now, they talk about them as being giant wind turbines. They're about 120 to 140 meters high, which is pretty high.
That is, yeah.
But that's not unusual for Europe. The trouble is they've been using 80-meter ones in the US typically. So basically, they need to catch up with us, Chris.
They do. I had a look. Actually, I think most of the ones that you'll see up on the Antrim Hills there, I think, are the 120s.
Right.
So they are. I did try to find on the on the Northern in the NIE and web pages, but I think they are the 120s. So they are. But
there's a huge swathe of them just south of me and west of me as well, down around Cardiff and places like that. There are literally hundreds of them.
Yeah.
Especially on the road on the way into Cardiff, there's big, massive wind farms there. It's tremendous, and they're huge.
They're brilliant looking.
They're fantastic. I love them.
I love watching them.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's very relaxing. It's very relaxing.
So now they're saying that in the US they'll start deploying, according to this is the Department of Energy report, and they're going to start deploying these larger ones And the larger ones will obviously, because they're up higher,
Yes.
they will allow
more wind.
They'll catch more wind, and they will be able to deploy them in places where they weren't able to deploy the smaller ones.
Yeah.
So new states like North and South Carolina, which couldn't have, and Louisiana, which couldn't have wind turbines before because they were too small and they wouldn't catch the wind, suddenly become viable for these larger ones. So they can start creating jobs and income and creating clean energy.
Fabulous.
So.
Fabulous.
It's not. I mean, the thing about this report, as I said, is they're talking about using wind turbines which have already been successfully deployed all over Europe. So there's nothing new here except the report says, let's make it so.
Yeah.
So that's all very good.
You wonder why they went with the 60 to 80 meter ones. Was it because they didn't want to put that much investment in, and
I'd say that's a cost issue. Yeah, I'd say it's a cost issue.
I like the graphic. I do like the graphic on the page because it breaks it out and you can see where they've been, which is the straight down the middle. Improved is pretty much all over, and then on the new they have it on the east coast down in Florida.
Right.
It's actually it's one of those graphics that nearly gives you hope because there's so much blue, and even the stable, which is straight down the middle.
Yeah,
it's actually it's a large area.
It is, and this is the graphic you're talking about. This map. The dark blue one there is the one down the middle is where it is right now. The stable one, as you say, and then the new one is the orange down into Florida, Louisiana, North and South Carolina, and places like that. So those are the new areas that can be brought online with these bigger ones.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that it is a graphic that could give you hope.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Karine is saying she's starting to have an accent, by the way, now listening to us talking.
We'll take over the world, one person. Here, speaking of actually taking over the world, today I think we should acknowledge the fact that today is the referendum in Ireland.
Yes,
on
very true.
Marriage equality, and I hope people have been sensible and voted the right way.
Voted yes.
Absolutely. Exactly.
And while Ireland is kind of behind the curve, and we're talking about the Republic now, while the Republic of Ireland is kind of behind the curve in legislation on marriage equality, it has to be said that Ireland is the first country to actually hold a vote on marriage equality.
Exactly.
So, it'll be interesting. It'll be historic, whichever way it goes. The polls leading up to it suggest that the yes vote will win and that Ireland will pass a marriage equality referendum, and that'll be great. Yeah,
I'm actually Lauren and I were talking about it on our way down the road, and my wife obviously, but we were actually thrilled about the fact that they were actually holding a referendum and not just allowing elected individuals to make that decision, because especially in the north, there's an awful lot of A, tactical voting, and B, it's the least worst option quite often.
Right.
And there's one particular individual in the Lagan Valley who I would have voted for purely because of his parliamentary record, not because I actually believed anything he stood for.
Right.
And in this situation, I would have had a serious problem. So I'm thrilled that Ireland actually had a referendum. They're a lot braver than many countries.
Well, it's not a question of bravery. It's just a question of the Irish Constitution requires it. The way the Constitution framed back in 1937, there's a lot of things that are written into the Constitution, which means very often Ireland has to have referenda on things like this. So to legislate for it, they need to change the Constitution to allow for same-sex marriage.
True. So anyway, let's crack on.
That's down to the church. It was the Catholic Church who helped frame the Constitution back in 1937.
Archbishop that now.
Yeah, exactly. Booyah!
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll blow on. We'll blow on.
Absolutely.
So, the next one I saw was this one. I thought this was pretty cool. GE are using holograms and IoT to make wind farms 20% more efficient. So again, this story is saying that they've already achieved about a 5% improvement just by optimizing the blades, the design of the blades, and you can see that here in the article. But they say that by doing things like creating holograms of the wind farms before they actually deploy the wind farms, so the holograms of the design of the wind farms, they can catch things that the software might not do.
Yes.
Then they use IoT, Internet of Things, to have all the turbines able to talk to each other so that they can optimize across the entire wind farm. So, one turbine knows when to drop back to, say, 70%, and the others go up to 80% or whatever, so that because each turbine creates its own kind of vortex behind it, so they can affect the ones behind and around each other. So as they start talking to each other, they can all optimize to get the maximum out of the entire wind farm. And GE are reckoning that the two of these things combined will allow for a 20% increase in efficiency of wind farms, which
that's significant. That's not a small increase. That's a massive increase, and
it's huge, because they talk about the blade design contributing 5%, and this is 4 times that.
Exactly. It reminds me of it's a wave tank, or it's not a wave tank. It's a tidal tank in San Francisco. MythBusters used it for the Alcatraz escape attempt, but it actually it's a scale accurate representation of the San Francisco tidal pattern, which is really complex.
Okay.
And they use that for testing various things like new approaches into San Francisco Harbor, or for wildlife habitats with buildings and stuff like that. And it reminds me very, very much of that, because there are things that you can't visualize as effectively on a screen, and it's not to do with the fact that you can't actually see it. It's the fact that your brain, when I'm proofreading something, I prefer to have a document in my hand. I can proofread it on a screen, but there are things that I'll miss, just because I can't see it. And those holograms are pretty cool. And then the IoT stuff reminds me of the geese, the V formation.
Yes, yeah.
It
makes a huge amount of sense.
Yeah, it's classic. It's copying nature, which is thought up of solutions to this stuff long before we came anywhere near it.
Millions of years to work on this kind of stuff.
Exactly. So but 20%, that's a staggering number.
Yeah.
Absolutely staggering.
Pretty amazing.
Those the new wind turbines, project like this, it's fabulous.
Yeah. And Karine would be delighted to hear we're sticking with wind energy with the next story.
Yes.
Because this one talks about a new type of wind turbine which generates electricity without rotating blades. I've read the article a couple of times, and I'm still not entirely sure exactly how it operates. It uses vortices, I know that.
Yes.
Vortices which come in behind the kind of tower.
Yes.
But how it uses those to generate electricity, it talks about using magnets and things as well. I don't know, does this part of the tower itself rotate, or what it is that does it? But maybe it's just the motion as opposed to rotation.
It looks, if you look in it, you can see through it, so there are slats in it. So it must function in some sort of aerofoil design, but not actually with the blades spinning like that. I remember seeing an old design, it must be about 20 years ago, which actually looks like an egg beater. It's two sort of bows going out with a straight an internal column. And I would wonder whether this would actually get around one of the classic problems of wind turbines in general, which is the pressure differential actually affecting wildlife that gets too close to it. Because those blades have very high pressure on one side and very low pressure on the other side, which, if you're a bat or a small bird, actually is quite detrimental to your health. even if you're not being hit by the blades, this may be a way of actually.
That's one of the things I say
Smaller.
about it, is that it is more wildlife friendly.
Mm.
It doesn't generate as much power as the traditional
Yeah.
wind turbines, but they say that that can be overcome by the fact that they can put more of them in a smaller area.
True.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, it'll be a while before we start seeing these deployed and tested, but and it's a Spanish company that came up with it, so that's nice.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And anyway, it's all good. It's all interesting developments in wind energy.
Absolutely. And it makes sense. You can't put everything everywhere, and the more solutions that you have, the more options you have.
Exactly. We're going to move away from wind energy now onto fuel cells. And I saw this story during the week, and I talked to the guys in Equinix briefly about this. So this is on Green Monk. It's a story I published yesterday on Green Monk. And basically, Equinix are a data center company, but they're also they do more than data center. They're kind of a net neutral exchange. They call themselves, I think it's an international business exchange is what they call it, an IBX. They're a big backbone provider for carrier neutral communications on the internet. They're huge out there. They're one of the big ones, if not the biggest one in terms of carrier neutral traffic. And what they've gone ahead and done is in one of their Silicon Valley data centers, installed a 1 megawatt Bloom Energy fuel cell.
Wow.
Which is pretty impressive. And what that means is that those Bloom Energy fuel cells use biogas, which is gas created from landfill and from animal waste and things like that. So it's fully renewable, fully renewable energy. And the fuel cells themselves generate a small amount of CO2, but because it's renewable, that's not a big issue, and a small bit of water. They don't create any, for example, NOx or SOx, no sulfoxides, no nitrous oxides, none of that kind of stuff. So much better for the atmosphere.
Absolutely. And small children.
Exactly. Equinix as an organization have a stated aim of getting to 100% from renewables. They're currently at about 30% from renewables, and all of their European operations are 100% from renewables and have been for the last number of years, despite significant growth in their fleet of data centers here in Europe.
That's impressive.
It's impressive. There's a couple of caveats that I noted. When I was researching for the article, I went through their 2014 SEC filing. As you do. And I found in one of their mitigations, one of the things where they talk about risks, they talk about California in particular, and the fact that climate change legislation has been rolled out in California, and there's issues in California as a consequence related to energy pricing. And also related to potential carbon pricing. So if you were cynical, you might think that this was done solely because, first of all, these Bloom Energy fuel cells give them security around their energy pricing for the next however many years. Plus, because they don't generate any significant amount of carbon, it shields them from any carbon charges that might arise. But having said that, as I say, the organization is quite green anyway in terms of the stated aim of 100% plus. They're at 30% and have maintained 100% in Europe up until now. The two things that I said at the end of the article about them is that they need to put an end date or a target date for reaching 100%, because they've said, we have an aim of getting to 100 by 2500. They haven't said by when.
Exactly.
And the other thing is they don't do any reporting of their emissions, so they need to start.
This is the CDP.
Yes.
Or
even the SEC. Because the SEC now allows companies to report on their carbon emissions.
Really?
Yeah, and if you go to the Google Finance or Yahoo Finance pages, any companies that report into the SEC, it's noted. It's noted on those pages.
Fabulous.
So you can see that there. Yeah. So they should be reporting on their carbon emissions. But having said that, no one had a gun to the head to say you need to use a fuel cell, and it's pretty non-traditional for data centers to do this. Not many do. So it's nice
how much would 1 megawatt? The 1 megawatt in a data center. Now I know it's heavily dependent on the size of the data center.
Yeah.
But if you look at the diesel generators that they use for UPSs, what's the megawattage on those? Are they as much as a megawatt? Are they?
They would typically be. Yeah, they would easily.
Yeah.
So if you look at you see, it all depends, because data centers come in all shapes and sizes.
It's
the one I co-founded in Cork would be about a megawatt.
Yeah.
The Apple ones in North Carolina and in Ireland are coming in around 50 megawatts, between 50 and 100, depending on, right now, when you start a data center, if it's, when it starts off first, there's typically very few servers in there, and you build up the servers over time, and you fill it out over time. So it might start at, if it's a large one, like a 50 or 60 megawatt one, it might start at, 500K, and over time go up to 50 megawatt.
Yeah.
So 1 megawatt in that, but those
start.
Those that's the start, as you say, and those are the large Apple ones. The Equinix is a different business model. So they don't say how much of that particular data center is being done by the fuel cell. It's not a 50 megawatt data center.
Yeah.
Because Equinix don't go in for ones that size typically. Yeah. But it might be 50% to 25% of the energy of the data center. I don't know.
But the interesting thing is that this comes back to one of the stories we talked about last week about the Netflix and the thing not being green.
Yeah.
This program actually gives a company the ability to decide. Let's say it's a there's fire holes, and the fuel cell is attached to fire hole 1 and fire hole 2. You could turn around and say, I actually want to use renewable power, put me in a fire 1, fire hole 2. It means that Equinix can put their carbon statement in, and then you as a consumer, you as the next business can say, my servers are in a renewable data center with renewable power, and
absolutely,
you can then put that in. So that then leads into that story.
It gives their customers choice, low carbon choice. Yeah, no,
that's
phenomenal.
And getting back to your original point, yes, you could be a little bit cynical and say, this is the California and the legislation stuff. Doesn't matter. It made a difference.
Exactly.
And that's the point. It made the difference.
Yeah.
So, I don't really care how they do it. I don't care what stick they use or what carrot they use. They did it.
Yeah, and you know what? If it is California legislation that was the prompt for this, exactly.
Yeah.
Then that's great, because it means more companies will do it.
Yep, and more states can do it because they've seen the effect.
Yeah.
So that's always good.
Yeah. Here's an interesting one. Company called Nerdalize.
Yes.
Did you come across this?
I like it already.
What they're doing is they've created this thing.
Yes.
Which is a radiator that you can put in your home.
Yep.
Which contains servers.
Awesome.
So you install these servers in your home.
Yeah.
And then they heat your home for free from then on out.
Oh, jeez.
And you have to have a fiber connection in your home.
Yeah.
But they're continuously churning equations and doing things, like grid computing.
Yeah.
So they're created. The company Nerdalize sells the compute power.
Yes.
So you're hosting part of a grid computer in your home.
Yeah.
It happens to generate heat. which no longer is all lumped together in a data center, which has to be cooled.
Yep.
Rather, it's in your home.
Tools.
You're getting free heat, and you're doing your house is doing computing for whoever.
Yeah. Now, the scary thing is, I've done this, right? So in my previous house, which was a semi-detached house, do you remember the old IBM Netfinity servers? I mean, they were about that big, and I used to have mine running all the time upstairs, and I used to heat my study. I kid you not, I used to heat my study. So yes, I get this. I see where this is going, and it's actually very interesting. It would be more. I would be more interested to see if they took the Swedish train station design, with the poly pipes across the top, which actually transfer the heat from the train station into the office building next door. So that is a very local solution in one place. If they actually had the heat pump as well, which could then circulate the heat around the house. I don't know. I haven't read the story yet, but
that's one of the things they talk about in the article. That there are companies in Scandinavia which do that kind of thing. They have data centers where they bring all the servers together, generate a lot of heat, take that out and use it to heat local houses or municipal swimming pools or things like that. So that's a slightly different model. They're both interesting ideas. I'm not sure which is the better idea, frankly. Whether it's better to have massive distributed servers all over the place heating individual houses, or whether it's better to have them all in one place and then you distribute the heat from there.
I don't know. It is a difficult one. It depends on the efficiency of the thermal conduction
and the transfer.
Yeah. It's
probably easier to transfer electrons than it is to transfer.
Yeah. So. But it looks good, and the name Nerdalizer, that's that is somebody.
As Karina's saying on Twitter, they're nerd power for the win.
Absolutely. This is what we want.
We'll plow on. There's a very quick one here. I'm not going to go through it in any detail because basically there's not much of a story. It's mostly video. Yes. But it's a drone which has a searchlight and a camera in it in Texas, which was used, and here this is the video. They used it to rescue people who were caught in a flash flood. Basically, the drone didn't do a lot of the rescuing, but what the drone did was it found people who were caught in the flash flood based on the reflection of the lights from the searchlight. So this yellow light here in this part of the video screen there, this is the searchlight on the drone, and it caught the lights in the car and they found people. And in another instance, they were able to bring a rope to people who were stuck using the drone. The drone brought them a rope, and then they sent them life jackets along the rope while they brought in a hovercraft to bring them out. So basically, there's a lot of talk about how drones are evil. And whereas drones are not evil, it's just depending on how you use them. It's like a lot of these things, they can be used for bad just as well as good.
Absolutely.
In this case, they're being used for serious good, for saving people's lives.
Well, it goes back to this thing. Quite often it's not necessarily in all these situations. It's the time taken to find people or to get to people. You can't always spin up helicopters and have them fly over places. Whereas if you have a drone in the back of your rescue vehicle, just shoot it up into the air, have a quick look around, who's where. Well, look at what was it? Two Chinook helicopters were returned to the UK from Nepal after the earthquake because they were never used. Whereas you could. I don't know why they weren't used or whatever, but if you were using drones to position and find people and then locate them for eight efforts, then that makes a lot more sense. You can do a lot more, so you can and direct people to other places.
The skill level required to drive a drone is far less than one for a helicopter.
Well, I don't know. I've seen some people flying drones.
Fair point.
All you need to do is put in drone the feel into YouTube, and I tell you, there's some dude going there. But anyway, sorry, we'll not go into that. Yeah, no, it is pretty cool actually. I do think they, that is one of those use cases you just look at and you go, for disaster relief and things.
Yeah.
And as you say, it doesn't take an awful lot. It means
they're great as well. They don't mention the use case in this particular story, but they're great as well in things like wildfires.
Yes.
A lot of the time with wildfires, they have to try and spot where the fire is going. So just spin up a drone, sort of see what's happening. You get a bird's eye view.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Cool.
All right, we'll plow on. The next one changes topics entirely, and it talks about virtual. Yeah, I know. Yeah, it looks a bit gross. Using virtual reality to see your guts, your intestines, things like that. This is a particular patient whose name is not shown there for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And basically, what this is a new way of visualizing the results of MRIs and things like that. And it's this company called True 3D.
Yes.
And they have this thing called EcoPixel, which allows them to see structures such as polyps and lesions and things like that, and assess their potential harm. Basically, they can look at the patient in any of the 3 dimensions, go through the different slices, the whole thing. So it's great for planning surgery. And if you need to do 3D printing of stents or things like that to insert, you can do that. And frankly, they don't say it in the article, but it strikes me reading the article that when it comes time for robots to take over surgery, something like this, you download a visualization like this into the robot. Suddenly they've got a map of where they need to go and what they need to do, and they just go in and they do it. And you don't get robots with shaky hands after a night on the town.
You don't, which is probably a good thing. But it's one of those things you look at it and you just think that it just makes absolute sense. It does say in the article up until it's only recently that they had issues with screen resolution.
Yeah.
So that it's really only now that has started to with 4K and all the rest of it.
The Oculus Rift type stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, but I've seen stuff like this over the last number of years, and the original sort of use case for it was around surgery and the ability for surgeons actually to look and start to test procedures and things like that.
Yeah.
But I love this stuff. It's using MRIs and CT scans and PET scans, which is really just a way of interpreting either magnetic fields or X-ray images and turning them into 3D things like this is really, really interesting, and the science and the maths that goes in behind it is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
So it is, the ability to take, for example, an MRI, which is basically just a magnetic resonance image of how different atoms in compounds and molecules vibrate at different it just blows my mind at the maths that goes into it just to create this picture. And you look at it and you go, oh, it's a lung, and you think, yeah, but think about what went in to actually determine what every structure was, and absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, no, as someone who's had a lot of MRIs in the last couple of years, I can totally get that. I can.
Yeah, it is just phenomenal, but it's the
very photogenic ankle.
Tell you about the rest. Oh, sorry. No. Sorry, I shouldn't say that like. No, and even at that, the software, I have to say, the cost of the software is actually very reasonable. When you think about it, when you turn around and say, right, it's 75 grand for the basic software, but that's perpetual license.
Yeah.
So it is. And working in enterprise software, 75K.
Licenses are unheard of.
Exactly, and 75K is peanuts compared to what it can do and the lives it could save.
Yeah.
It's well worth it. So NHS, take note.
And Sticking with healthcare for a minute, there was this one which I thought was really cool. And it talks about having brain-controlled bionic legs. And this is a company out of Iceland. And they've created this thing called the Proprio Foot, which is kind of hard to say if you're not careful. The company is called Osser.
Osser, yes.
It's Icelandic, so I'm not sure I'm getting the pronunciation exactly right. But basically, the point of it is that it's incredibly easy to install. The surgery to the installation, they're using these things called implanted myoelectric sensors, and mostly for these kinds of technologies, there's a huge amount of surgery involved to implant sensors under the skin. But with this one, they said it's 5 to 15 minutes installation of surgery, and it's local anesthetic, so it's very, very straightforward.
So it's a day procedure nearly.
Yeah, completely. And I saw this article in 2 different publications, and they were in each publication they interviewed different people who had tried it.
Yes.
And in both cases, the people who had tried it were blown away, because these were people who had lifelong injuries, and this was completely life-changing for them. These were people who were like 20 years with previous types of prosthetics, which caused them to trip and walk with a different gait favoring one side and all this kind of thing. But with this one, the ankle turned when they wanted it to turn, and they had a normal stride, and they were saying, that it was just life-changing for them. They no longer had sores at the point where the prosthetic met the skin and all this kind of thing as well. So, it's the advances that we're seeing in medicine due to technology in the last couple of years are they're insane, phenomenal.
Well, I must actually dig into this a little bit more, because I'm a big fan. Your man, the super vet, he's the Irish vet.
Yeah, he was in school with me.
Oh, was he? Oh,
fabulous. Pat Fitzpatrick.
Yeah. Yes, yeah. But his stuff, his prosthetics that he puts onto the dogs and the cats, I find actually are attached in a much more sensible way than a lot of the human prostheses.
Right.
And just looking down through it, whenever you look at the mane of the Proprio Foot close up, you can actually see it has a nut at the top, which reminds me very much of how he attaches to the dogs or the cats, rather than having a socket just in a fabric socket or holder or whatever. But it actually looks as if it's physically attached to the bone, and then the muscle, and then the motors are connected to the muscle. So it does look fabulous. The thing at the bottom says it all to me for the reason why I did it, and that was, he says, I'm not doing this for me. I'm already old. It's the next generation that are really going to benefit from this.
Yeah.
I think he's in his 50s, so he is, and he's had 20 odd years. What is it? He's 48, and he's lived in pain for 28 years.
Yeah.
But this, it's phenomenal. That it looks brilliant, and I like the thing at the top. The fact amputees have been testing this for over a year.
Yeah.
It's
not
real.
vaporware.
It's not. It's real. It works, and it's actually changed the lives of people.
Yeah.
So that has. So from that point of view, I just hope it doesn't cost a horrific amount of money, so that people can actually get access to it. But again, as technology moves on, the 3D printing and that sort of stuff, the price of these things
will fall away.
Well, I think will they fall into the same? Will they continue to fall into the same trap as pharmaceuticals, which is around intellectual property and research? Funding that means that they still cost a lot, or will they fall away in terms of cost the same way industrial things fall in price because of better efficiencies? I don't know. I would like to think as it would follow the industrial model as opposed to the pharmaceutical model.
Yeah, I think so. it's. I mean, we won't know until we know. But just reading down through the article, you kind of get the feeling of the guy that he's more likely to go for the latter than the former.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, I hope so. Definitely.
Switching topics into IoT for a second, and there's speculation, and I don't often do a lot of speculative articles, but there's speculation that Google's going to release a flavor of Android at their event next week.
Yes.
Which will, their I/O event every year.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be working on a flavor of Android called Brillo. God knows where they got the name, but it's supposed to be a shrunk down version of Android, which will work on devices that have as little as 32 megs or 64 megs of RAM. So basically, it'll work on almost any small device, and if all these small devices are operating on the same OS,
yeah,
they should very easily be able to talk to each other. That's the thinking.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of devices out there already which don't have Brillo on them.
Yeah.
But the thinking is that, this new version of Android for IoT devices would get a quick uptake and would start to power everything and everything would be able to talk to everything.
Yeah. We've talked about this in the fragmentation of the IoT market, and it's one of those things that it's never the fault of the software, but the integration.
Yeah.
I think we're getting to a point now where people really need to sit down and think long and hard about how they integrate the sensors to the systems that actually turn that sensor data into valuable insight, whether that's reporting or whether that is a workflow or a transactional system that does something. We look at predictive maintenance schedules.
Mm-hmm.
So we have knowledge-based systems or in-memory databases that have predictive algorithms. We take sensor data and then we can determine whether a piece of equipment needs maintenance on it based on a predictive algorithm. But that doesn't take into account all the multiple types of different sensors. It just takes one data stream in a particular format. So if there's standardization in that area, then it doesn't really matter how many operating systems there are in the world, as long as...
No, it's very true. It's very true, yeah. Devices should be able to talk to each other independent of OS. And
yes.
We do see that already in other spheres. My phone can talk to your phone. You're on Android, I'm on iOS, for example, using various applications, email, WhatsApp, text, whatever it is. So yeah, no. That's true as well. It's a fair point. And I'm always a bit hesitant when it comes to Google. I gotta say that there's an agenda there that I always kind of go.
I know, and we talked about it last week with the Google Fit, and I have to admit, actually, I have shied away from using the Google Fit this week. I'm still doing a bit of research to see, just how much. I would really like to see the Apple Health put it on the Android platform as an app.
Yeah.
I would be a lot happier with that. But at the end of the day, one, I'm not a lawyer, and two, I'm I'm just an ordinary person. So
you won't see it on the Android platform, unfortunately, because the Apple Health one is not the one they open source. They open source the medical research.
But
Microsoft's one is available on Android and on iOS.
I must actually have a look at that.
Yeah,
you know me. I'm a big Microsoft fan.
And they're getting better. The Microsoft Band is supposed to be quite good. I've read a lot of good reports about it, and it reports into their health app.
Yeah, it's the Band. Whenever I first saw the Band, it really, really got me excited because for the sensor density, for the price,
Yeah.
it beat everything else off the table. I think there's something like 12 sensors on that device, and it's coming in at, I think it's £180 sterling, probably the same in euros, which for that type of device, that price is phenomenal.
Yeah.
So
Having said that, you're right. You are right.
it's ugly. It's not. It's not the prettiest thing on the planet.
No. Having said that, this
Yeah.
is the Fitbit Charge.
Yes.
Charge HR.
Mm-hmm.
So that's taking a constant heart rate.
Mm-hmm.
And it retails for, I want to say, around €140.
That's not bad, especially given my exchange rate at the moment.
Exactly. So about €140. I think it's 139, or maybe it's 149. It's in and around €140. It's got heart rate. It's got elevation. So if you go up and down stairs, it does steps. It does sleep. It does all the usual kind of things.
Yeah.
It doesn't have GPS, but you've got
that's what your phone's for.
So
it is.
Yeah. So it's got time obviously as well, and you can track calories and all those kind of other things with the Fitbit application. There's another application called Sync Solver, which takes all the information out of the Fitbit application and copies it across into the Apple Health application.
So very nice.
So I've got everything in the Apple Health application. So
see that's another area that if people are smart, or one or two smart companies are going to dip in and be able to move the data from the health apps into the repositories.
Yeah.
Which will unlock the ability for people to, like yourself, to use the Fitbit, but then use, for example, Microsoft Health or Apple Health or Google Fit. You're not going to be locked to a platform.
Yeah. Yep. I'm still waiting for someone to come up with when you have WhatsApp open, for example, and you have a share my location option within it.
Yes.
I'm still waiting for a health app to come up with a share my health data button.
Yes.
And doubtless it'll come, because you will be in your doctor's office and you will want to say, look, here it is, and it bang shows up on his screen.
Absolutely.
But we're still a while away from it, apparently.
Yeah. Well. Yes. We're going to have to watch the time. I've got about 5 minutes left before I have to run and get Shorty.
We'd have to. Okay.
Not fair, obviously. Yeah. My other little girl. No.
We'll flip through them quickly. So, Firefox for iOS is beginning a beta testing program, and it's about frickin' time. Firefox is my default browser on the desktop.
Yes.
And the laptop. Just because it's got the best memory footprint of anything on iOS. It's much better than Safari or Chrome.
Yeah, Chrome in general has just gone down.
Yeah,
in my estimation.
Yeah, absolutely. So I use Firefox now, and having the option to have it on iOS as well will be fantastic, because I do the syncing of bookmarks and tabs and all that kind of stuff. The ability to do that now as well across my mobile devices.
Well, but iOS still has this inbuilt bias to its own applications.
Yeah,
it drives me nuts. Whenever you say I want to open something, it will default to its own Safari or its own mail program, and that
it depends. That I know now that I have options. It's not all programs, but I know that in some of the apps on the phone, they give me the option to open in Chrome.
Yes. There are some of the apps, but if you're in an Apple app and it wants to open, then it's going to open its own one, and that. So if I was using Calendar, for example, and there was something attached, a message, it's not going to open my mail, which I used Cloud Magic. It's going to open iOS mail.
Yeah, on OS X devices, there's an option to set a default browser. And once that's set, anything that calls a browser opens the default browser. It doesn't matter from where. There should be something similar on iOS devices.
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay, we'll plow on, because we've got a strict time deadline that we have to hit.
Absolutely.
Here we go. Facebook have now made video calling a feature, and it's available worldwide, and it's within their Messenger app. I use their Messenger app from time to time. It's quite useful. The ability to have video calling in there, it's another platform with video calling, I guess. The big difference, I guess, is that as opposed to other alternatives like Skype, I think Messenger has a larger user base.
Yeah, I just can't bring myself to use Messenger. I'll use it on the web platform. I won't put it on my phone. I actually, now that I have Android, I'll probably put it on my Android phone because I can control what it has access to more on my Android phone than I fell for the scaremongering when it first came out and all the permissions and stuff that it needed access to. And I've read numerous articles where they've explained why they need access to this stuff and why they've had to put it this way. Because some of the stuff, Android, Google Play simplified their permissions.
Right.
So when they put needs access to the mic, actually Messenger only needs access to the mic to make calls. But whenever some people read they need access to the mic, the tin hats come out and they go, oh God, they're recording everything. So,
well, they have to for the NSA, don't they?
Yeah, that's true. But no, I just
isn't Zuckerberg an NSA employee?
I know. Oh God. But I can't
see he bought up all his neighbours' houses.
Yes, I did. Yes. So
he values privacy.
Yes, exactly.
So ironic.
It's just one of those things. I can't bring myself to install the app, but yet I'll have WhatsApp on my phone, which is Facebook anyway. So it's completely irrational.
Sure.
So it is. But the one thing I would say is that there are the only two platforms I've ever seen get mobile video calling right is Hangouts and FaceTime. Everything else is very, very unreliable. And I would even go so far as saying Hangouts is actually quite unreliable. So it is. FaceTime is probably the de facto best standard that I've seen on a mobile device.
Yeah. I look forward to trying it out. And WhatsApp have recently rolled out not video calling, but voice calling as well.
It's awful. It's awful. I tried it in Heathrow. I had I was on my MiFi, which had 4 bars. It was on 4G, so it was the person I was calling was in the office on a wireless connection, which was stable. And in the end, I actually had to ring her over the cellular network, which was crystal clear.
Wow.
I've
had mixed. I've had I've had 3 calls. 2 of them were to other people on iOS, and they were fine. One of them was to someone on an Android, and that was terrible.
Yeah.
So I don't know, is it iOS to Android or something like that, or maybe it depends on the version, or I don't know.
It could be. It could be. I'm finding actually that the sheer number of different flavors of Android and handsets and all the rest of it is actually affecting the quality of the experience on the device, which is something that you do not see in the iOS camp because iOS control the operating system and the hardware. Yeah. There are numerous things on my OnePlus that I'm actually finding niggles, which are annoying. Things like I'm having to stop and start services. Stuff which I shouldn't.
You should have a chat with Abesh.
Yes,
but he has a OnePlus as well, and he was saying he's sending it back because it's a heap of crap.
Yeah, I loved my Nexus 4, which was obviously Google, and it was in that right price point. I got the OnePlus knowing that it was going to be a gamble, but I like the handset. I can tweak it, but I shouldn't have to tweak it.
Yeah. That's true. By the way, you should say hello to Sue Cocaine, who's watching us.
You're just doing that out of badness, man. You're just doing that out of badness. Tom, I'm really going to have to run, man. So I am. So apologies. I have thoroughly enjoyed today. Thank you very much.
Not at all.
And I shall see you next week.
I'll keep in your absence. I'll plow on.
No worries.
I'll try and hold up my end.
No worries. All right. Listen, thank you very much. Have a great weekend.
Cheers, Chris. You too.
I'll see you next week. Cheers. Bye.
So, by myself, there's only a couple of stories left, and it's a pity. It's a pity Chris had to leave because there's a couple of interesting ones there. But Microsoft, sticking with communications for a second, and we were just talking about, as you saw there, the Facebook Messenger app. Well, Microsoft are apparently developing an iPhone chat app called Flow. It's supposed to be a lightweight one to go along with Outlook. It eschews things like subject lines and that kind of stuff. It's going to be a very basic one, very lightweight. This is the subject of a leak right now. It hasn't been released yet, so we'll have to wait and see how that turns out. This is a cool one. A town called Hun, Jun, in Spain, is using Twitter to run everything, and apparently it's working. So this is a cool little story in Digital Trends, and like all these stories, the links are in the show notes. If you use Twitter, well, the cool thing that this town Hun are doing is that and it's a small town with 3,500 people. They've been using it since September 2011 to do everything from spreading local news, developments, job opportunities, school dinner menus, etc. And on the other side, the residents of the town can do things like they can book appointments with doctors, lodge complaints about local services, report crimes, and become involved in the local community. You can see here on the police car, they've got the Twitter logo. You can see that the guy who cleans the streets, he's got a little street cleaning machine there. He does a before and after picture. And he's saying, Baradora, Baradora, Baradora is a cleaning machine. Que boca más grande tienes, which is, look at the big mouth you have. Para devorar mejor, to all the better to eat you. It's casco viejo. So he's a local legend in the town apparently for doing things like that, and they've got things like the alcalde, who's the mayor of the town. He's saying that another form of following is to take a photo in any of the tapas bars in the town of Hun and tweet them. So the mayor says that it helps bring residents and governments closer together, and where before town employees weren't recognized for their work in the community, they're now appreciated. People get more pride out of their work. Law enforcement also benefits from an improved image and can react faster thanks to reporting coming through faster, and usually with photos taken that include the exact location. Having said that, it's 3,500 people. It's not exactly a crime nest or den. Apparently, there's only one policeman in the town. There's a world's cheapest computer now costing $9, whereas we had Raspberry Pis and Arduinos before. The Raspberry Pi was coming in around $35. This one comes in at $9. It's a miniature PC, has the same functions as a regular computer. It's created by a startup called Next Thing Company. It has a 1 gigahertz processor, 4 gigabytes of storage on board, 500 megs of RAM. It comes with Bluetooth and Wi-Fi for network connections. It's powerful to run all kinds of software, and it runs mainline Linux. Comes with an integrated battery power circuit, so you don't need external power. All you have to do is attach a 3.7 volt battery, and you're good to go. It can be used, in all kinds of situations. So this looks very, very cool. $9 for a computer. This is all kinds of educational possibilities, never mind possibilities for IoT devices. Google, Samsung, and 16 others have received post-password certification. There's a certification called FIDO, which is for post-password stuff. And basically, using FIDO, a fingerprint reader can authenticate a user without sharing the fingerprint itself, using zero-knowledge proof to protect sensitive biometric data. Basically, and this is a standard for authentication without passwords, and there are 16 companies, not including Apple. They were one of the companies I didn't see on the 16 others. But basically, a lot of these companies, including Samsung and Google, have received this certification, which means we are now headed into a post-password world, finally, because passwords are just so broken. And Yeah, Karine, the Spanish lesson, you'll have to buy me a beer the next time we meet up for that. You're welcome. Okay, Google is now adding fingerprint authentication off the back of this, one would suspect, to the next version of Android. The next version of Android is Android M, which will include native fingerprint authentication. So coming up to speed with Apple on that. Uber, second last story. Uber has gutted the Carnegie Mellon's robotics laboratory to build its own self-driving cars. Apparently, they took about a third of the employees out of Carnegie Mellon University's robotics center. So it looks like Uber is joining what's the word I'm looking for? The autonomous vehicle brigade, and they absolutely need to, because Google are there and a lot of the other manufacturers are there as well. And when Uber go there, it'll mean that Uber will be able to, do away with their drivers. And the drivers that they have are a large part of their expenses. You will then order an Uber vehicle, have the vehicle show up by itself, take you to where you want to go to, and it all be as seamless as it is now, just without the driver. Finally, last story, and this is a pretty cool one. An experimental spacecraft was launched yesterday to test sailing in space. This was privately funded, and it's using sunlight and photons in a huge sail. And there's a video here which explains it a little better. It's called LightSail 1. It launched from Cape Canaveral in Florida, and it's testing the idea. And this is an idea that was put forward by what's the name of the guy? The guy who did Cosmos, the original guy who did Cosmos. The name will come to me in a second. And basically, they're talking about the light from the sun and the radiation from the sun producing a kind of pressure on the sail, and that would push it forward gently, but enough to propel a spacecraft. And it's kind of a cumulative speed. So eventually, it starts going quite fast, and they don't need fuel, and they can go quite fast and go for long distances without fuel, which. When you're talking about spacecraft, the fuel becomes a large part of the payload, and if you can do away with that, it means you can have much smaller spacecraft and they can go much further. Okay, it's going to be interesting to see, because that one was just launched yesterday, so we still don't have any news on how well it is going, but it'll be in the next few days we'll start seeing whether the sails are working to propel the spacecraft or not, and how well that's going. So hopefully it goes well. Carl Sagan was the name of the guy who I couldn't think of. Carl Sagan, the original guy from Cosmos. This is one of his ideas, to have these light sail vehicles. Okay, that's it for this week. Thank you for joining me. It's been fun. And hopefully we'll see you all again next week, same time, same channel. And if you've any Boom, am I still there? It says I'm live. Okay, that was weird. It told me the call ended, and now it's telling me I'm live, so I'm not sure if I dropped out. Anyway, I was about to finish anyway, so time to go. Have a good weekend, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day if you're still at the start of your day. If not, if you're towards the end of your day like I am, enjoy your weekend, and we shall see you all next week. Okay, bye.